Well, I might take you up on that as we get to questions at the end of this, if we could. Unless, we'll get you started, then we'll come back to EVs.
Sure.
Thank you. Introduce yourself, Sarah.
Sure. So my name's Sarah Cushman, and I used to come out of the technical world. I used to actually work on cars full time. I'm looking at trying to reduce the number of vehicles on the road and drive alone trips. And normally I would start, I wish we had more time because I'd love to hear more about why everyone's here and what you're actually looking for out of this. So this is not a guilt-inducing presentation. I do have a car in my driveway. Actually, it's outside right now. I carpooled up, but this is my daughter. We were doing a skit about like hang up and drive people. So we are a one-car family. If there was a second car in my driveway, I would be the first person to use it if I could. But it definitely encourages us to get around in different ways, which is turns out is kind of a lot of fun. We talk a lot about why people might want to try to use different modes of getting around. And I think all of us know, if I ride my bike, I'm saving on cash. If I carpool, I'm helping, save emissions, the planet that sustains our daily life. If I catch the bus, I might have to walk to the bus stop, walk from the bus stop. I will have to do those things, and that improves health. We also have the darker side of, and that was great too, to talk about the EV side of things. We're getting so much better with an electric vehicle in terms of our resource extraction, and all the dirty steel production still is part of it, of course, but those things are getting better, but they definitely still have an impact. The other thing I always want us to think about is we should absolutely be trying to switch as quickly as possible to alternative vehicles, especially EVs. And I still worry a little bit about that giving us permission to think we can drive that more freely down the road. And I think about it in terms of it's quite a bit of an environmental impact to build a new road. So when we talk about building like a new turnpike spur, for example, there's also a good bit of environmental impact if we need to widen an existing road or even do a big reconstruction of a road. And when I say environmental impact, I'm not just talking about habitat, but also about things like our agricultural land, for example, is not limitless. So we're always encroaching on food production possibilities too. Traffic congestion, quality of life, obviously getting much better in the EV world, but we've got a long way to go. Pollutants are also getting better, as they were describing, right? We're putting less out into the environment, except for maybe tire tread, that kind of stuff. We do still have one of the worst asthma rates in the country. I think a lot of that's because we're at the end of the tailpipe, the state of Maine, yeah. And we contribute to it ourselves. So again, that push toward EVs is a tremendous, tremendous benefit to us. And I appreciated them talking about that life cycle cost, right? Our cars do still end up somewhere, but less of them, right, if I'm driving an electric vehicle. So that's the environmental impacts. My fiscal conservative self always wants to talk a little bit about the money piece. It's really expensive for us to own cars, and that's really a tremendous impact on our families when we talk about that equity piece. And we also don't have enough money to maintain even the existing infrastructure we have, right? The littlest things cost a lot of money, right? Just putting in a new traffic signal. Just getting through the repaving on my rural road, for example, or having to do reconstruction of a road, right? So you guys know well in the legislature, this is like the challenge. So that's a big reason to do that work. But I sort of feel like the death and dying and destruction, or fear. And actually, I don't know if you guys saw this. These were great essays on the war on terror. So he did sort of his own little version. But I don't think scare tactics really help people in terms of motivation. I don't even think, that sort of basic conservation message, Jimmy Carter telling us to put on our sweater, right? Turn down the thermostat. God bless him. And there's some Mainer side of me, the Yankee side of me, says that there's some value to that conversation, but I don't think it motivates other people. But what I found over the past 15 years of doing this work, of sort of evolving into this trip reduction work that I do, is it's not really about the mechanics of it, although that is energizing. It's so fun to see everybody have questions about it. And so there is that piece. It's sort of like what George said, whatever gets you excited, that's great. But what I found is that there's some magic to how we can get around differently. There's an art to it, sort of like what Travis was talking about, the thinking he has to do, right, in terms of making it work for his family at different times. And there's also this element of resistance, I think, that's kind of intriguing. And bottom line, these things make us happier. Getting around differently makes us happier. So I'll give you an example. This is my cousin Frances. She actually just passed away in July. She was actually my grandmother's first cousin. And she lived in Saco, out in the middle of farmland. She and her husband raised her 2 daughters in this tiny little cape. And they had one car, pretty typical of the time, actually probably doing pretty well in the 40s to have one car in the household. And they both worked staggered shifts at Portsmouth Naval Shipyard. It's about an hour away. So Vernon would go to one shift with the family car, and Frances would get picked up by a neighborhood carpool to go to the shipyard a little bit later. She'd leave her kids with her mom and head off to work. And the way she described that experience, it was really profound. It was powerful, the connections, the friendships she made over the years of driving together. And it was kind of sweet, too. This is a happily married woman. I should preface this by saying. But what she said was there were more men in the carpool than women. And for that era, it was a really unique opportunity for her to build relationships and friendships with men, hear different people's stories. So I think that it definitely added to Frances's quality of life. I think that when we get around these different ways, so I'm talking about walk, bike, bus, carpool, we see the world as it actually is, or in a more realistic fashion, right? So the warts, the beauty, all of it. We see people, we connect with people that we see along the way. We see little unique details in our community. This was just from a little walk around the neighborhood and some arty things the neighbors had done with rocks in their mailboxes. We also connect with the planet that sustains our daily life. And I think that gives a tremendous boost to our everyday. I might walk down the street. A lot of times I'll walk down to the market to get groceries. And the other day I was walking down and a big trash bag sort of blew past me like a tumbleweed and crashed into my legs. And just sort of those tangible experiences, not always pretty, but something. The other morning I was smelling the sewage treatment plant. So again, being a little more in touch with what's around us. I was thinking, I saw this fun shot that was free for the using, but I was thinking about this event and people who might have carpooled here today, and the kind of community and connection that gets built even before you arrive at this event, right? Like you've already built something up even before you get here. And maybe the other day I was carpooling to something, and a friend shared a story, and I laughed so hard my face hurt, by the time I got there. Maybe it's you. This is another sort of example. A lot of times I'll head out to a meeting on the bus, and I walk out to the bus stop, and it's maybe the first time I've felt sun on my face all day. First time I've really been outside all day. Or I was thinking a couple of months ago, these girls are having a lot of fun in the rainstorm. I don't usually enjoy riding in the rain, but I had to head to a meeting, and I was like grumbling and mad, and why does my husband have to have the car? And I swear to God, within 5 minutes, it was like I was kind of grinning into the spray, just feeling like in my own body, using my body to get there, embracing the elements. There's something, there's a real sweetness to it. I think also that we end up being examples to other folks when we use these different ways of getting around, and that we're sort of we're standing in witness to what a more connected world might look like. We're also standing as witness, people, even if they're inside their cars, they see us outside of ours. And so they take a look at, I'm biking across town, or you're biking over to your neighbors, and they think, maybe I could get the bike out of the shed and do that. Or they see you hopping off the bus and think, maybe that's something I can do. I think we also offer support to each other when we connect. And God love Joe Biden. He made that commute every day because he wanted to be home with his family on Amtrak. It's just like a great story. But I think we do. It's like we're standing in support of each other when we see each other out there. And it really offers us a chance for renewal. So I'm here with good news. As George said, there's sort of this beautiful piece of this work is that in the very act of doing these things, of taking these different ways of getting around, they're actually renewing us with more energy for the climate journey that we're on. And so it's sort of a tender reminder to all of us that to grab every chance we can get to try these different ways and connect with folks around us. And this is like a really dreaded part of South Portland. I can't stand walking this out by Pape Chevrolet. But again, I have that thankfulness for being able to have that more connected journey when you do get to do that, and really savor those moments of connection. So that's my flowery spiel. I have more suggestions too, more nuts and bolts. But the flowery piece, I think, is food for us too. So back to this slide. If that's the only way that you feel comfortable riding on a beautiful path, that is wonderful. That's wonderful. I can't recommend enough, though, learning a little bit more to feel comfortable bicycling with car traffic. And Cycling Savvy is a great resource. They offer classes in southern Maine a couple times a summer. And I think many of us have come out of it, going from I will never bike in traffic to I feel totally comfortable and confident that I can do this. And that seems like a very minimal nuts and bolts piece, but that's actually really huge. Not feeling like I can bike on the road is a big deal. Another thing, I think a lot of us are supporters of transit and rail, both rail and bus transit, ferry transit as well. And many of us haven't actually ever taken our local bus service. And a lot of folks will say, well, there is no local bus near me. And that's actually probably not the case. You might have very infrequent bus service, but there are demand response services that serve most communities in the state. And I think a lot of people think, oh, they're just for folks, who are seniors or disabled or super low income, but they are open to all of us, no matter our age, ability, income. And exploremaine.org will send you to be able to kind of investigate what the local transit provider is near you. Knowing how we use our bus, local bus, it turns you into an ambassador. It also helps you just kind of connect with some new people in new ways, which I think is powerful. It also helps you become a better transit advocate, too. And taking the Downeaster anytime you can get is just like magic, too. This is something that's going on right now, so True Confessions. Sorry. It's Tika?
Yeah.
Yeah, so Tika asked what kind of work I do. This is an example of a contract I'm working on right now. Go Maine, which is the statewide commuter assistance program, they offer the emergency ride home benefit, for example, like if I'm stuck at work and my carpool has to leave, how I can get home with a authorized taxi or enterprise rental car. But they're running this really fun business-to-business challenge. So if you're in the workplace, this is I'm really looking forward to this. It's coming right up. And it's a way to sort of friendly competition, pit your workplace against others. And it says business-to-business, but any workplace, any organization in the state can play. There's no better training for walk advocacy and bicycle advocacy, and that's everything from, I'd really like a new sidewalk in our village area, to how can I work with law enforcement about speeding issues, all those kinds of things. The Bicycle Coalition of Maine's Community Spokes Program is tremendous, and the next training is in Farmington on November 9th. And they've got tons of online tools as well. But it's not just great training, it's extensive hand-holding for as long as you want to stay engaged. They do a tremendous job of supporting people over time. Another thing, I don't know if you guys saw, it came out a little bit late probably, but a couple days ago they sent around a group, carpool.com link, in case you wanted to carpool here today. And this is the best, I have no affiliation with these guys, but they're great. It's free for any event up to 50 people. It's $10 for an event up to 500 participants. So you would pay as the organizer your $10. And then everyone here, there's no registration. I don't have to log in as a user. I just need to sign up. Just sort of sign up, either grab a carpool or list one. And no fee for the user as well. So very low barrier, very easy way to get people to carpool without you having to send out like an Excel spreadsheet or something, trying to get folks to connect with each other.
Does it work well?
It does.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
I'm excited.
it's great. If you could take nothing away from today except for that. Thinking about another thing for events, supporting subsidized bus service, so working with your local transit provider, hey, could you offer rides even to like an outer parking lot into our village area? Or could we do bike valet, which the Bicycle Coalition, they're really experts at that. So so it's another thought for encouraging alternate modes. This is one I've got my eye on a little bit. It's out of Paris. A group of small business owners got together and bought one, I'm not sure, actually that's not true, maybe like 12 electric vans that they're sharing amongst themselves, because a lot of businesses need access to a vehicle of some size for certain times, but they don't need it all the time, right? So it's car sharing, but for small business, and it's an EV model, which is just tremendous. Maybe this is the other thing to take away from today is how many of you guys know your town planner or your regional planner if you don't have a town planner?
Planning board.
Yeah, so there's a planning board. God love the planning board. I don't know how those people commit that much time. Any of you who've served as planning board members, I bow down to you. But staff, municipal staffer, if you have a municipal planner, or if you have, everyone has a regional planning organization, like your local council of governments or regional planning commission. I strongly, strongly recommend you have a visit. Call up and say, I'd love to sit down for half an hour and share with you a little bit about the things that I'm energized about, and also hear more from you. Because this is often the most progressive person probably in municipal leadership. And so their ability to connect you with what's going on well before, like, oh, wait, I just saw it in the newspaper, the meeting was last night, that kind of thing, right? I don't know if you have that. I have that happen to me all the time. Yeah. So the more that you can kind of get looped in with whatever processes are going on around, the better. This is something that's happening. This is actually, I'm working on this project in Portland, but under Portland ordinance, it's required that if someone new is going in, like with a big new building, thank you, or I'm moving something, like we had a charter school that moved locations. And it has, in Portland, it just so happens if you have 100 or more bodies that are going to come to your site, you have to have what's called a transportation demand management plan. That's a terrible term that doesn't explain very much. But the whole idea is like it's a trip reduction. We're trying to reduce the number of drive-alone trips to that site. And so that's a requirement during development, but we're starting to see it pop up a little more. Yarmouth now is requiring some TDM plans. It's something to start. If you start getting nervous about new development, it's a great tool in the toolbox for reducing trips over time. And companies can do them voluntarily, not just companies, but institutions like USM here in Lewiston.
What's TDM again?
Sure, it's called Transportation Demand Management. And yeah, so it's like the idea is let's not build more roads, let's reduce demand. It's basically the concept. So, but starting that conversation, this is where I'm going to be controversial. I think we do so much good work in the environmental movement, and that's probably my timer. Is that my timer, Tony? We fight density as environmentalists, and open space is incredibly important. So we need to preserve communal beauty, right? Communal access, absolutely important. But I think so many times we just like jump out, right? Like, we just slam down, like, boom, something's happening. I don't want it to happen. I don't want to change, whatever it is. And this is the number one thing that keeps viable alternate transportation from being viable, right? The further apart buildings have to be, the more sucky the walk is, right? The more stinky the bike ride. The complete impossibility of having transit networks. So if we can, and I have to do this myself, is like, stop fighting the density.
Well, unless there's a whole bunch of condos ringing the waterfront and blocking everybody's vistas,
Well, and even then, it's like, there's lots of variables in any project, absolutely. But I think we have this sort of visceral gut response when density actually would serve us better over time. This is just a little bit of last little sort of, these are, I'm a Quaker, and these are New England friends who've organized a couple different pilgrimages. So like 10 or 12-day walks. And I think it's like opens up that community conversation also of, I love this poster saying, is this an invitation to new life, climate change? And we've got another one coming up. Anybody going on the climate ride? Does anyone? Yeah? Maybe? Yes?
I've done it before.
That's great. So
Is it a bike?
Fred Horsch and Bob,
What?
thank you, are organizing this awesome ride to the fair. Starts on Wednesday.
Fred will be on a panel on sustainable business practices at 1:00.
It's coming. So that's my last slide. Just this reminder that the actual act of doing these things keeps bringing us back and feeding us for the journey. You can always get back there if you get in the despair mode. Thanks, Tony.
Thank you, Sarah, very much.
Sure. This is, if you get a chance to watch this video, please do. I'll definitely post the presentation. If there's no better thing we could do for land use is to make no minimum parking requirements. Parking makes everything, every land use, right? It forces us to spread out our land use. So from a land use planning standpoint, not having parking requirements, do not require.
I was gonna say, that's not a
Well,
problem.
no,
Most
but
communities-
if I put a Dollar General in your town, am I required to build parking for it?
Yes.
Yes. Yeah. So any place that goes in has to build parking. And so parking requirements, it's an archaic land use form. That's pretty tricky. From a personal standpoint, carpooling is, those empty seats in our cars are our public transit option for most of us as Mainers. We are primarily a rural state. My bus from Greenville is going to be like once a week, right, that I get access to. So carpooling is it. As far as a comp plan recommendation, I feel like anything that you can do to improve village areas is really key. So that walkability piece.
That's
Yeah.
probably one of the
Which
key
gives
things
you-
you can do in rural areas.
Which gives you a place to have a base to
Yes,
have your carpooling
yes.
meet up.
And even, yeah, having, exactly, well, but allowing actual development in, if you've got 2 primary crossroads in town, doing what you can to slow traffic there, calm things down, let development happen, anything you can do to build village areas will build your community and make it much stronger.